There are stories in the Bible that people read, and then there are stories that watch you back. This is one of them, because this isn't just a story about Jesus casting out demons. This is a story about why 7 demons chose one woman, why they stayed, why they fought to remain, and why, on one specific day, Jesus didn't avoid her, but faced everything inside her head on. Have you ever wondered why some battles feel personal? Why some pain feels targeted? Why some people suffer quietly while the world keeps moving? What if the woman everyone avoided was the one heaven was watching the closest? Stay with me, because by the end of this story, you may never look at spiritual warfare or yourself the same way again. Before anyone ever whispered her name with fear, before the word demons was attached to her story, Mary of Magdala was simply a woman trying to survive. She lived near the water in a town that smelled like fish, salt, and sweat. Magdala was busy, traders coming and going, fishermen hauling nets, voices rising and falling like waves. Life happened loudly there, but Mary lived in the quiet spaces between all of it. She learned early how to move without being noticed, how to lower her eyes, how to step aside before someone asked her to. Because it's one thing to be poor, it's another thing to be unwelcome. At first, no one called it possession. They said she was troubled. They said she was unstable. They said grief had done something to her mind. And maybe in the beginning, that's exactly what it was. A loss she never spoke about, a betrayal she never healed from, a night that changed something inside her. Pain has a way of carving rooms inside the soul, and something else is always listening, waiting to move in. The first demon didn't announce itself. It came as a thought that wouldn't stop returning, a voice that sounded suspiciously like her own. You're alone? No one is coming. This is all you are now. She argued with it at first. Everyone does. But when days turn into months and the voice never leaves, you stop arguing. Then another presence joined it. Not a voice, a pressure, a weight on her chest at night. A sudden wave of anger that didn't belong to the moment, an urge to destroy what little she had left. By the time the third came, Mary stopped naming what was happening, because naming it would mean admitting she was losing control. And in Magdala, a woman with no control had no protection. The demons didn't come all at once. They never do. They came like thieves who learned the house first. What makes her cry? What makes her afraid? What memories still have power over her? 7 spirits, each one settling into a different corner of her life. One fed on shame, one on rage, one on despair, one on isolation, one on fear, one on self-hatred, and one that convinced her she deserved all of it. That was the cruelest one, because it made the others feel justified. And slowly, Mary became known for the wrong reasons. The way her eyes sometimes went blank, the way her laughter came at the wrong times, the way she would speak, then suddenly stop, as if someone else had taken the words from her mouth. People stopped inviting her anywhere, not openly, just quietly. She noticed when seats near her stayed empty, when conversations paused as she passed, when mothers pulled children back, not in anger, but fear. Fear hurts worse than hatred, because fear says, you are dangerous just by existing. And Mary began to believe it. There were days she didn't recognize herself, moments where she would wake up somewhere and not remember how she got there. Hours lost, time stolen. Have you ever lost time in your own life and wondered what filled it? The demons use those moments to strengthen their grip. Because control isn't loud. Control is absence. The absence of will, the absence of clarity, the absence of hope. 7 demons didn't need to destroy her body. They were after something more valuable, her identity. And here's the part no one in town understood. Mary was still fighting, even when she screamed, even when she collapsed, even when she stopped praying out loud. There was a small, stubborn part of her that refused to disappear, and the demons hated that part most of all. That's why they stayed alert, because somewhere deep inside her was something untouched. A spark they couldn't reach. Why else would they need 7? Why not one powerful spirit? Why a full occupation? because one wasn't enough to silence what God had placed inside her. And while Magdala slept at night, while doors closed and lamps dimmed, something shifted in the unseen world. Far from Mary, far from Magdala, a teacher from Nazareth had begun walking from town to town, healing lepers, opening blind eyes, speaking with authority that made demons nervous. And demons always hear the footsteps of deliverance first. Mary didn't know his name yet, but the spirits inside her did. And for the first time since they entered her, they felt something unfamiliar, fear. Not fear of being challenged, fear of being exposed. Because when light comes, darkness doesn't argue, it resists. And in the days leading up to their encounter, Mary's torment intensified. Her nights grew louder, her thoughts more violent, her isolation deeper, almost as if something inside her knew time was running out. And here's the question you should be asking right now. Why does the battle often get worse right before breakthrough? Why does peace feel farthest away just before freedom arrives? Mary couldn't answer that yet. All she knew was that one morning, she woke up feeling watched, not by demons, by something else, something patient, something purposeful. And somewhere on the road leading toward Magdala, Jesus was already close. Long before Mary ever saw Jesus with her own eyes, something inside her knew he was near, not in a comforting way, not in a hopeful way, in a disruptive way. The night before it happened, sleep refused to come. Every time Mary closed her eyes, her thoughts scattered. Not randomly, but violently, like a room full of birds startled at once. Her chest felt tight, not from fear exactly, but from pressure, like something was pacing inside her, restless. The demons were uneasy, and demons don't get uneasy over nothing. They had ruled her inner world for a long time. They knew her patterns. They knew when she would break. They knew when to push and when to wait. But this was different. This was urgency. One voice inside her hissed warnings. The others didn't need explained. He's close. Another spirit stirred her anger for no reason, snapping at strangers, flinching at shadows, creating chaos wherever it could. Because chaos is how darkness hides. Mary didn't understand why she felt worse than usual. She only knew that something was approaching. Have you ever noticed that right before something life-changing happens, your emotions seem to betray you? That anxiety spikes, that confusion thickens, that peace feels completely unreachable. That's not coincidence, that's resistance. While the town of Magdala went about its morning, nets being cast, merchants calling out prices, dust rising with each footstep, a quiet panic moved beneath the surface. Not among the people, among the spirits. Because Jesus wasn't just passing through regions randomly. Every step he took was intentional, and every demon knew his reputation. They had heard what happened in other towns, how sickness fled at a touch, how madness dissolved at a word, how authority flowed from him without effort. This wasn't a prophet arguing scripture. This wasn't a priest negotiating rituals. This was someone who didn't debate darkness. He commanded it, and demons understand authority better than humans ever do. That's why they reacted early. Mary felt it as irritation, as sudden dread, as an impulse to isolate even further. One demon pressed her toward shame. Hide, stay away. If you're seen, you'll be destroyed. Another whispered lies about Jesus before she ever met him. He'll reject you, he'll expose you, you're not worth his time. Isn't that interesting? Before freedom ever speaks, fear tries to define the outcome. The demons didn't want Mary to see Jesus, because sight leads to hope, and hope is dangerous. That morning, Mary tried to remain indoors. Something urged her not to go out, not to be seen, not to be near crowds, because crowds meant witnesses, and witnesses meant confrontation. But something else, something quieter, pulled her toward the open air, not forcefully, gently, like a memory she couldn't place, like a truth she'd forgotten. And here's the unsettling part. That pull didn't come from the demons. For the first time in a long while, there were two forces moving inside her. One panicking, one patient, one desperate to maintain control, one calmly advancing. And Mary stood in the middle of that unseen conflict, unaware that she was the center of a spiritual collision. As she stepped outside, the noise of Magdala wrapped around her. People didn't notice her at first. They rarely did. But the demons noticed everything. They felt the shift in the air, the change in spiritual pressure, the presence that didn't announce itself, yet filled space effortlessly. Jesus had entered the outskirts of the town, not loudly, not dramatically, just there. And the demons inside Mary recoiled, because his presence didn't provoke them with aggression, it unnerved them with authority. Have you ever been in a room where someone walked in and said nothing, yet everything changed? That's what authority does. It doesn't argue, it rearranges. Mary felt dizzy, her thoughts collided, her body tensed. One demon urged her to flee, another urged her to confront, another pushed her toward collapse. Because when darkness is cornered, it doesn't agree on strategy, and that division weakened them. For the first time, they weren't united. They were reacting. Jesus hadn't spoken yet. He hadn't looked at her yet. He hadn't even reached the center of town. And still, 7 demons were already losing ground. Ask yourself this: if darkness reacts this strongly before Jesus speaks, what happens when he finally does? Mary didn't know why tears filled her eyes. She didn't know why her feet moved her closer to the noise instead of away. She only knew she was tired of fighting voices, tired of waking up afraid of herself, tired of surviving instead of living. And exhaustion does something powerful. It makes you honest. As Jesus drew nearer, the demons pressed harder. They stirred memories. They magnified guilt. They reminded her of every reason she didn't belong near holiness. Because darkness always tries to convince you that freedom is for other people. But deep inside Mary, beneath 7 layers of torment, something answered back, not with words, with willingness. And that terrified the demons more than anything else. Because willingness is the crack light enters through. And they knew. Once Jesus looked at her, this would no longer be a hidden battle. It would be public, decisive, irreversible. And for the first time since entering her, the demons were no longer in control of the timeline. It didn't happen the way Mary expected. There was no lightning, no shout from heaven, no dramatic announcement, just a moment. A single moment that stretched longer than time itself. Mary was standing at the edge of the crowd when she felt it, that sudden stillness. Conversations continued around her, but they sounded distant, like she was underwater. The demons inside her went quiet at the same time, not calm, cautious, because something had just happened. Jesus had stopped walking. He hadn't reached the center of town yet. He hadn't begun teaching. He hadn't performed anything that looked like a miracle. But he stopped, and then he looked up, straight at her. Have you ever felt seen in a way that made you want to run? Not because someone noticed you, but because they saw through you. Mary's breath caught in her throat. Her instincts screamed at her to turn away, to lower her eyes, to disappear like she always did. But she couldn't. Her feet felt rooted to the ground. The demons stirred violently. One surged fear through her chest. Don't let him look at you. Another flooded her mind with shame. He sees everything you are. Another whispered something colder. If he speaks, we die. And yet, beneath all of it, there was something else. A strange, aching sense of recognition. As if her soul had been waiting for this moment longer than her mind could remember. Jesus didn't glare. He didn't flinch. He didn't look shocked. His expression didn't carry disgust, fear, or even urgency. It carried knowing. And that terrified the demons more than anger ever could. Because anger reacts, knowing commands. The crowd noticed him pause and began to look around, wondering what had caught his attention. Their eyes followed his gaze, and slowly, inevitably, they landed on Mary, the woman everyone avoided, the woman everyone whispered about. Suddenly, she wasn't invisible anymore, and the demons panicked. They pushed her thoughts in every direction at once. Kneel, run, scream, attack, hide. But Jesus still hadn't spoken. He was doing something far more powerful. He was waiting for her. Because deliverance doesn't begin with power. It begins with consent. Mary felt exposed, not physically, spiritually. As if layers of defense she didn't know she had were being peeled back without force. Her chest tightened, her eyes burned. Tears welled up, not from fear, but from something dangerously close to hope. And hope, when you've lived in darkness too long, feels painful. Because hope asks a terrifying question. What if this is real? One of the demons finally broke the silence inside her. He's not here for you. But that lie didn't land the way it used to, because Jesus was still looking at her, not scanning the crowd, not distracted. Her. The distance between them wasn't far, a few dozen steps at most, but it felt vast, not physically, emotionally. Crossing that space would mean choosing exposure over hiding, and Mary had hidden for years. What would happen if she stepped forward? What would the town say? What would the demons do? What if nothing happened at all? Jesus tilted his head slightly, not in judgment, but invitation. And the demons recoiled, because they recognized that gesture. They had seen it before. That was the look he gave right before commanding sickness to leave, right before chains fell off men who had forgotten freedom. Mary didn't understand any of that. She only knew that for the first time in her life, someone wasn't looking at her like she was broken beyond repair. He wasn't staring at the demons, he was seeing her beneath them, and that changed everything. The crowd grew quiet now. Whispers rippled. Some recognized her. Some looked uncomfortable. Some already knew what this could become. But Jesus still hadn't spoken. Because sometimes the most powerful thing God does is give you a moment to choose. Mary's legs trembled. The demons urged retreat one last time. If you go to him, you won't survive this. But another voice, soft, unfamiliar, almost forgotten, rose from deep within her. Neither can I survive staying like this. And that was it. That was the fracture. Mary took one step forward. The demons screamed inside her. Not out loud, not yet, but in panic, because they knew something irreversible had just begun. And Jesus smiled, not triumphantly, not smugly, but gently, like someone who had been waiting a long time. And in that smile was a promise the demons understood clearly. This ends today. Jesus didn't raise his voice. That's what unsettled everyone. He didn't shout commands. He didn't chant prayers. He didn't call attention to himself. He simply spoke. Come. One word, not to the demons, to her. And the moment that word left his mouth, the atmosphere snapped. Mary's body convulsed as if struck by an invisible force. The demons erupted inside her, no longer whispering, no longer strategizing. They were exposed. 7 presences surged forward at once, fighting for control of her voice, her limbs, her breath. She dropped to her knees. The crowd gasped. Some stepped back. Some froze. Some stared in horrified fascination, because now there was no denying it. This wasn't illness. This wasn't grief. This was spiritual. Mary clutched her chest as voices burst out of her mouth, layered, distorted, overlapping. None of them hers. What do you want with us? The question echoed unnaturally, as if several throats spoke through one. Jesus didn't flinch. He didn't look surprised. He had already been speaking to them long before they revealed themselves. What is your name? He asked calmly. The demons hesitated, because names matter. Names acknowledge authority. To name yourself in the presence of Jesus was to admit defeat, but they were forced. Many, they answered, not because they wanted to, but because truth bends in his presence. 7 spirits, full occupation, complete infestation. And Jesus didn't argue. He didn't negotiate. He didn't ask why they were there. Because darkness never has a reason. Leave her. 3 words. That was it. And hell broke loose. Mary screamed as the demons fought violently. Not against Jesus, but against losing their home. Her body shook. Her back arched. Her voice fractured. The demons begged. Yes, begged. Not for mercy, for delay. Not now. Not here. Not like this. Isn't that revealing? They didn't deny his authority. They pleaded with it. Because demons know something humans often forget. When Jesus commands, resistance is temporary. Freedom is inevitable. The crowd was frozen, no one moved, no one spoke, because something ancient was happening in front of them. A clash that had nothing to do with flesh and everything to do with dominion. Jesus stepped closer, not aggressively, not cautiously, deliberately. And when he spoke again, his voice didn't carry anger. It carried finality. "Come out of her." Every demon screamed, not in pain, in loss, because they were being stripped of control, of territory, of influence they had invested years into. And one by one, violently, unwillingly, they were expelled. Mary collapsed forward, gasping. Then silence. Heavy, absolute, the kind of silence that follows a storm. The crowd waited. Some expected her to die. Some expected her to rise screaming again. But what happened next unsettled them even more. Mary breathed, slowly, evenly. Her eyes opened, and for the first time in years, they were clear. No voices, no pressure, no darkness, just awareness. She looked up at Jesus, not in fear, but disbelief, as if she couldn't trust what she was feeling yet, because peace can feel foreign after prolonged torment. Jesus knelt down, not above her, with her, and spoke softly. "You're free." 3 words that rewrote her entire existence. The demons were gone, but the story wasn't over, because freedom creates a new question. What now? And the crowd. The crowd didn't know what to do with a woman they had only ever known as possessed. Freedom didn't arrive like a celebration, it arrived like silence. Not the empty kind, the full kind. Mary sat on the ground, her hands trembling slightly, as if her body didn't yet trust the calm. Her breathing was steady, but her mind kept waiting for interruption, for the familiar pressure, the sudden thought, the invading voice. Nothing came. That was almost frightening. Have you ever lived so long in chaos that peace feels suspicious? She touched her face slowly, like she was confirming it still belonged to her. Then her chest, then the ground beneath her. Everything felt present, too present. Jesus remained close but didn't rush her. He understood something most people don't. Deliverance ends oppression, but healing takes time. Around them, the crowd didn't know how to react. They had been ready for a spectacle. They weren't prepared for restoration. Some people stared, unsettled. Some whispered. Some looked away entirely. Because it's easier to handle brokenness than to confront change. Mary noticed the way people hesitated to come closer. They still saw the woman she used to be. And for a moment, a dangerous thought flickered through her mind. What if freedom changes me, but nothing else changes? Jesus answered that fear without addressing it directly. He stood and extended his hand, not commanding, not dramatic, just an offer. Mary looked at it. No one had offered her help in years. She took it, and as he helped her to her feet, something subtle but powerful happened. The crowd stepped back, not from fear this time, from recognition. This woman was no longer what they remembered. The demons were gone, but something else had taken their place. Purpose. Mary's eyes moved across the faces around her. People who had crossed the street to avoid her. People who had whispered her name like a warning. People who had decided her story was already finished. She didn't feel anger. She felt clarity, because when you've been set free from darkness, resentment feels too small to carry. Jesus didn't give her instructions yet. He let her stand in her freedom, let her feel it, let her own it. And that's when she realized something shocking. The demons had taken many things from her, but they hadn't taken her ability to choose. And now choice returned in full. She could walk away. She could disappear. She could try to rebuild a quiet life and pretend this never happened. Or she could follow the one who had seen her before she was free. Jesus turned to leave. No announcement, no expectation spoken out loud. But Mary knew. Some truths don't need words. She followed, the crowd murmured. Because deliverance is one thing, devotion is another. Mary walked behind him, not because she was told to, but because she couldn't imagine returning to life without the one who had restored her mind. And here's the part that often gets overlooked. Jesus didn't just free her from demons. He restored her dignity. He didn't send her away. He brought her in. That day, Mary of Magdala became something she had never been allowed to be before: a disciple, a witness, a woman with a voice that mattered. And that terrified darkness more than her possession ever had. Because a broken woman is easy to control, a healed woman becomes dangerous to lies.